Creative Mind, Exploring the Art of Thinking by Forrest Kinney. To see is not to see. The creative mind is a traveler who loves to explore and discover new possibilities, and is excited and energized by the fact that there are more roads and paths to travel than can be taken in many lifetimes, both outside of our heads and inside of our heads. To take us on creative journeys, we need a mind that is quick and agile, like a car cruising down a highway, or perhaps like a sturdy off-road vehicle to take us to the wilderness. But no matter what kind of vehicle our mind is, here's the problem. We get stuck. Our perceptions and our conceptions get snowed in, and there's nowhere to go. We park at conclusions, and then further exploration dies in some desert, in a habitat made out of habits. We come to a dead end. Someone once said, a conclusion is the place where you got tired of thinking. In this first video of this series, I'd like to give my best advice about conscious thought and how it can help or hurt when it comes to the creative mind and living a creative life. I'm going to tell you about the blind spot in our thinking, the place where most of our problems originate. So here we go. What do you see? Two faces facing each other? Or perhaps a vase, a goblet? Notice how when you see the vase, the faces fade into the background, and when you see the faces, you don't see the vase. In this famous drawing from the 19th century, what do you see? A duck? Or perhaps a rabbit? Once again, our conscious mind sees one or the other, but not both simultaneously. And here's another famous drawing. I'll add some color to it. What do you see? A young woman or an old woman? Is that red line the lipstick of the older woman, or is it a choker-style necklace of a younger woman? Is the circled area the nose of the young woman or the eyelid of the older woman? Is this a cheekbone or the lower edge of a nose? Here again, we see one way or another, but not both simultaneously. Shakespeare's famous line is, "To be or not to be." Well, in the case of understanding the nature of conscious thought, I think the most important line is, to see is not to see. We see one thing while simultaneously not seeing another. This is the nature of visual perception and also of conscious thought. But the real problem is that we then tend to get locked into one way of seeing and neglect the fact that there are many other ways of seeing, at least two. We become habituated and unable to see another way. Genius, according to William James, considered to be the first American psychologist, means little more than the faculty of perceiving in an unhabitual way. I consider the creative mind to be, among other things, the mind that is aware of our tendency to fall into the habitat of habits. So it is always looking for what is hidden, always seeing other ways. The creative mind knows that everything we are conscious of is only what we see above the surface, and this is just a fraction of what is there. There are always other ways to perceive and conceive the world. We say the sun goes up, but we could just as well say the earth goes down, or say it another way. We say a grandson is born, but whoever says that a grandfather is born in the same moment as the grandson? Is she pointing to the right or to the left? She might say to the right, while I would say to the left. Mullah Nasruddin, the wise jokester in the Sufi tradition, once sat on a donkey backwards and said, "I'm not facing the wrong way, I'm facing the right way. It's the donkey that's facing the wrong way." This reminds me of what a general said during the war in Korea in the 1950s. "We're not retreating, we're just advancing in another direction." What do you see? Perhaps a road that runs north and south. But we cannot see north and south without simultaneously creating a background of west and east. What do you see? The room and perhaps the view outside the room, But what about the space within the room? These appear to be random shapes, but when we look at the negative spaces, the white areas, we see the letters of the alphabet. This picture is a fiction. No one can stop in midair like that and hold themselves there. The same with this picture. We can only see something clearly by stopping its movement. And when we see the movement, we can't see the object clearly. In scientific terms, when we know the position of an object, we don't know its velocity. And when we know the velocity, we don't know the position. This is the nature of the conscious mind. To see is not to see. To know is not to know. Understanding this helps us to quickly see the root of many arguments. One person says, it's black. Another will say, it's white. Both are correct and both are incorrect. One person will say, this is a 13. Another will say, it's a B. Again, both are correct and both are incorrect. Once this sort of thing is seen, many problems have a chance of being resolved. And we can find unusual ways to solve these problems. For example, our common practice is to put a fence around people we consider insane. However, given the state of things, it may make more sense to put a fence around the sane people. Here's an example of how this understanding about thought might help us to comprehend the roots of a global problem. What could be more obvious and factual than 2 + 2 = 4, something every child knows? 2 apples plus 2 apples equals, yes, 4 apples. How else can we look at this? In the creative mind, there are always other ways. We can look at it from the point of view of the apple tree. What we see as +2 will be seen by the apple tree as -2. And the whole equation will be -2 and -2 equals -4. So 2 + 2 = 4 is only half the picture at best. We are taught to add, but we were not taught that to add is to subtract. If we weren't trained to think in this way, we might not have so many problems with trash, for one. I mean, we talk about throwing away trash, but now we know that -2 is also +2. These bags are being added to a landfill. They aren't just being subtracted. It's untrue to think that they're being thrown away. The creative mind is always looking for other ways to see things, for possibilities that have been excluded. It's open to multiple interpretations. It's excited by all the options. It's feasting at a smorgasbord of possibilities. Whereas a beginner at the game of pool might just see this one shot, the creative mind is like the master billiards player who can see many, many possible shots. The main difference between a creative life and a normal life can be expressed like this. Suppose someone enters this door to go to work each day. It's the only door this person knows. Such a one-door person might feel oppressed by the lack of options. The creative mind is always aware of multiple possibilities. This means that a person living a creative life may still enter door 4 every day to go to work, but this person is aware that this is a choice among many other possibilities. This makes all the difference. The creative mind knows that door 4 is white, but it could be painted any of these colors. The door's handle is plain, but it might be shaped like this, or made of a material like this, or even decorated ornately like this. The door might have a knocker, but one that is more intriguing, or perhaps one of these. Everywhere the creative mind looks, there are new possibilities to explore. Here's one way of indicating a bike lane. But we could write bike above lane, and we could print it directly on the street rather than write it on a sign. Or why not write bike on the bottom, since that is the first thing a bicyclist or a motorist sees? It's a belt for holding up pants. But one day someone said, why can't it hold up other things as well, such as tools? And in an emergency, a belt might be used as a tourniquet. Someone who can only see a belt as something that holds up pants would not be able to save a life. S Bock, the patriarch of modern Western music. When he looked at the musical notation of his mentor Buxtehude, he didn't just see instructions, he saw other possibilities suggested by the instructions. As a creator, he didn't just see what was there, but what could be there. He heard and saw ideas that suggested new compositions and improvisations. Unlike the conscious mind, which tends to see by not seeing and tends to get stuck in one way of seeing, the creative mind travels in one direction while simultaneously being aware of many other directions, many other ways to go. The creative mind sees possibilities and chances to thrive where the normal mind just doesn't. The doorway into the creative mind is this understanding that our conscious mind sees by not seeing and gets stuck in one way of seeing. Once we see how we get stuck, we can unstick ourselves, get back on the road, and continue our journey into places we've never seen before.